In previous videos, Stinger Audio has impressed me with their MT series amplifiers. I've tested the 1000 watt, the 2000 watt mono. Well, guess what? They now have a 4000 watt monoblock. They sent it my way for an independent review and test. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's see what's in the box. Here we have the owner's manual, which talks about all the features and settings and specifications, all that good stuff. Very nice owner's manual. Then we also have a troubleshooting guide that walks you through the steps of some of the issues you may have if you don't know what you're doing. And we have a power certificate where it looks like it does just overrated power at every single ohm load that they tested it at. Also included is a little baggie, which has some goodies, has some mounting screws, has a mounting bracket for the bass knob, which we'll show in a minute, and a couple of Allen's keys. Also, here we have the bass remote. It's a telephone style connection here going to just a bass knob. And this is the kind that's designed to kind of be mounted in your car where it's hidden. It does have the bracket, which I will show here shortly. And this is just a very simple minimum to maximum. There's no built-in LEDs or anything like that. It's a very simple bass knob, but I do like the potentiometer. It does work well and it's easy to turn, which is always important. Here we have the Stinger 4000 watt amp wrapped up. Let's take a closer look, but before we do, we must resist temptation to eat the silica gel packet.
This is not a Mickey Mouse program!
Nor are the prices Mickey Mouse. You can see here $459.99 for this amplifier. It is a Korean-style half-bridge amplifier made in China, engineered in the United States. As for the ratings, at 4 ohms, it's rated 1200 watts, 2 ohms, 2300 watts, 1 ohm, 4000 watts. That's at 14.4 volts, 1% distortion. As for the dimensions, 24 inches on the long side, 7 inches for the width, and 2.1 inches for the height. Millimeter equivalents are there as well. Now, the RCAs do have these little plastic caps which protect them, so we have to take those off first. Then we'll take a closer look at this end of the amplifier, starting off with the Power and Protect LED that is red and blue in color, depending on which mode. Clip light. Also, we have the RCA inputs. These are Tiffany style or panel mount. We have the remote jack for the bass remote cable, which we've already shown. Also, we have the gain, 0.22 volts to 6.6 volts. Low pass filter, adjustable from 180 hertz down to 40 hertz at 12 dB per octave. Subsonic filter off to 50 hertz at 12 dB per octave. Bass boost frequency between 30 and 80 hertz, between 0 and 12 dB variable. Very nice. Also impressive to see all metal potentiometers at an amplifier at this price. Now we have the speaker outputs. This is a monoblock amp, but it does have 2 different outputs. You don't have to use both because they're wired together internally, but it is nice to have 2. That way, if you have 2 speakers or a dual voice coil speaker, you can use both of those outputs, but you don't have to. Some people get confused with that. Now on the opposite side of the amplifier, very simple here. We just have 2 huge power blocks. What you'll notice here is both of the 12 volts are on the left side, as well as the remote socket. Of course, the 12 volts are oversized 0 gauge. The remote turn on is up to 8 gauge because everybody needs 8 gauge turn on. And the ground is on the opposite side. Again, dual 0 gauge oversized. Very nice. Now we have the MT4000.1 hooked up on our bench. We fire it up. You can see here, it takes a little surge there in current, but it levels out around 3.8 amps of idle current. We're powering this with the Wilson Audio Labs LTO bank, which includes 6S8P. That's 48 cells of 40 amp per hour LTO from Excess Power and Yinlong. You will notice in this test I allow the voltage to sag down into the 13s. I did that on purpose. That way we can find out what this amp does with lower voltage. Now let's hook it up to the amp dyno. If you haven't seen these tests before, on the left you'll see the power output in watts. In the middle, the ohm load. On the right, the voltage of the dyno. We'll also have the remote clamp so that we can estimate the amplifier's efficiency. First up, we have the amp set for the 4 ohm mode. It's rated 1200 watts at 14.4. Here we go. Certified takes us up to 1% distortion. And man, we almost get 1,000 watts more than is rated. 2189 at 14.34. This is already starting out very good for this amp as far as performance goes. Uncertified takes us up to the clipping point. We expect to get a little more, and we do. 2528 at 14.25. Again, it's rated 1200 watts. We're getting over 1,000 watts more than it's rated. Some people are going to say, oh, that's too much. You're going to hurt your speakers. No, man, just be careful. If you start smelling the smells, then turn it down just a little bit. You're good to go. We got 2,545 watts at 14.56. Now, the included power certificate says 1,214 watts at 4 ohms. I'm not sure if the person who took these results must have need some new glasses or something. Anyway, let's move on to the 2 ohm test where it's rated 2,300 watts. We've already got more than that. The 4 ohm test, let's try it out. Certified to 1% distortion. Right at 4,000 watts.
No way.
Yes, it is true, and that is right at 14 volts too, so we're not high voltage with these tests. Let's try it uncertified up to the clipping point, see if we get over that 4,000. Yes, we do. We get 4274 at 13.91. Lastly, for the 2 ohm run, let's set it to the dynamic track, which sends a pulse track of 40 hertz into the amplifier. And here you can see it keeps counting up. Now in this test we got right around 14.4 volts, but we did 4,644 watts dynamically. Again, the power certificate says 2376. Not sure why. We're going to get to the internals of the amp later in the video, but first we have to show the 1 ohm run. It's rated 4,000 watts. It literally did 4,000 watts at 2 ohms. So what are we going to get at 1 ohm? How about 6,000 watts? Are you kidding me? At 13.69 volts. Unreal. Uncertified up to the clipping point. We're going to get over 6,000, I'm assuming. And yes, 6380 at 13.5 volts. Yo. Okay, dynamically, we'll run it dynamic here at 1 ohm. And we are well above 7,000 watts. Actually, 8,000 at 14.34.
1.21 gigawatts!
Once again, we look here at the power certificate. It's just over the rated power. 4,084 is what they show here. And we got well above that. As shown here with the results, we also ran at 8 ohms. We got 818 certified, 1340 clip. Efficiency was between 73 and 80%. Which is about what's expected for a Class D monoblock amp. Overall, very nice. Now let's take out this bottom panel and check out these beefy guts. It has 6 different transformers here, a big old load of rail capacitors here, and just some beefiness going on. Here you can see the power supply section, and we can see the 3,300 microfarad 25 volt. There are 10 of those total. That's 33,000 microfarads of capacitance. And then we move on to the rail section. And man, it's like they almost needed to expand the amp to add all these capacitors. There are 24 total 1,000 microfarad, 160 volt odd caps, 105 degrees Celsius capacitors. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of this amplifier. Straight off the bat, of course, insanely underrated. The value for the money for those who want a Korean-style half-bridge amplifier. It has metal potentiometers. It does include the bass remote, has a Tiffany-style or panel mount RCAs, dual speaker outputs. You don't have to use both, but you can. The oversized zero-gauge inputs, which are lined up, positive on one side, negative on the other. Thank you, Stinger, for doing that. On to the cons, or what I say, things to consider, because they may not all be cons. It is insanely underrated. The burst sheet is inaccurate. It has generic looks, but again, for the price, who cares? It does require 500 amp fuse. If you're going to get an amp that puts out this much power, you will have to provide it the power that it needs to make it. You can't run this on a factory system. You need at least a couple extra batteries if you're using AGM to be able to run this with a nice size alternator as well. There you see the guts of the amp. Again, super beefy. This amp seems built very well. For the price, I was impressed, but I'm not done yet, because I had to run some more tests. I said, what about 1.33 ohms? I don't ever really show that, but let's just show it anyway. Certified to 1% distortion, 40 hertz, and here you go. 5380 at 13.87. But I was so impressed by the 1 ohm run, I said, I got to do it again. I actually ran the 1 ohm run like 6 or 7 times, and every time I got over 6,000 watts. In this case, 6158 at 13.71. So I was like, well, let's just run it again and see what we get this time. And again, 6234, 13.73. Yo!
40,000 at 0 ohm. 0.
Okay, not 0. We'll try 0.8. This is not recommended from Stinger, but we decided we'd try it anyway, see what happened. 6,651 watts at 13.5 volts certified. Then we were even dumber and decided to try it up to the clipping point, which is not too smart. But we did it anyway, and this is what we got. Right at 7,000 watts, 6923 at 13.46. Well, then we set up for the dynamic test at 0.8, and the first burst, the amp shuts off. So it doesn't blow up or go up in smoke. The protect light is on. You can see the red LED there on the amplifier. So all we're going to do is power cycle it with the remote turn on. We'll turn it off, turn it back on. Goes from red to blue. That means we're good to go. Amp is not hurt. It has a great protection circuit built in. It sensed the current was too much, and so it put the amp into protect. So the amp seems to be built well. It seems to handle all the tests like it did. Did not get overly hot. Man, I'm impressed. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you want to see this on the quad box or see me test it any other way. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, make sure you smash me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. More videos are coming soon. Till next time, this Big D. I'm out of here.